All right, good morning. And we will begin with 20 minutes of meditation. And yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday and kind of afterward realized how I, I'm not really talking about the 12 steps very much these days. So um, at some point, I need to get back to that a little bit more, perhaps. Uh, you know, my, I think a lot of times I teach what I'm interested in talking about rather than what I think people might want or need. So you guys are certainly welcome to contact me and let me know topics that you'd like me to cover. Um, I'm kind of absorbed in the Dharma world, so I'm kind of coming at things more from that angle these days than from the 12-step angle. But I'm certainly always happy to change that. So just to let you know that. So let's begin our sit, settling into your meditation posture. However you hold your body that you find helpful in being awake and aware, in being relaxed and present. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze if you're more comfortable having your eyes open. There's no need to be looking at the screen for this period of time. Certainly any break we get from screens is a good thing. And rather than necessarily immediately directing your attention when you settle into your meditation posture and close your eyes, it's helpful to just see what grabs your attention first. What do you notice right now? So I, in that moment, immediately felt my face, just the sensations in my face, and then my back. And that's just me, just as an example, not what you're supposed to do. But so there can be this connection and awareness of the body, or you might notice thoughts. You might immediately be swept away in thoughts, or there might be some emotion or mood that seems dominant in your experience. I think it's helpful just to see this right away. What's kind of the default place that your mind goes or your attention goes, or that attracts your attention in that moment. And then you might start to apply some effort to pay attention in intentional ways, or in an intentional way. So I'd like to relax the body, release the shoulders, relax the jaw, soften the belly. So just a general sense of feeling yourself in your body, feeling the body sitting, the body at rest. If you're relatively new to this practice, you might not really feel much in your body. You might not really know how to connect with that awareness. It can take some time to tune in to the subtle sensations. If you're more experienced, you might feel the body as a whole field of energy or locus of sensations, a whole range of sensations. And then you can connect with the breath. This is the simple, direct way to being present with the body, feeling the sensations of breathing. There's the inhalation and the exhalation. We're beginning by distinguishing those sensations, either at the nostrils or the belly. Either feeling the touch of air at the nostrils in and out, or the movement rising and falling of the belly. There might be sounds in your environment, other sensations, thoughts or feelings that draw your attention. And so we just return to the breath when we find ourselves off in one of these other areas. If there are persistent thoughts on a particular theme, make a note of that. Acknowledge that you're really drawn to that thought right now. If it's a triggering kind of thought, notice the feelings that come up with it. And then see if you can again come back to the breath. Can you breathe with the feelings? We want to be aware of shifts in energy. If we become drowsy, just sit up a bit, maybe open the eyes. If you become restless, maybe take a deeper breath and release, calm the body. The type of effort we make is important in meditation. We need to be patient and persistently returning to the breath and letting go. But we also need to avoid judgment or striving, sense of forcing the mind to stay with the breath. So trying to find a balance so that we're not just hanging out, spacing out, but we're not turning our meditation into a competition, another form of striving. Looks like somebody's in the waiting room. Everybody can take a sip of their tea now. See, half the people here with their tea. Coffee, tea, scotch. I don't know what you're drinking. So again, going to talk about higher power of love from this is a section of my book, A Burning Desire, Dharma, God, and the Path of Recovery. I think I'm just going to read this. This is the last section from that chapter. It's page 71 if you're reading along. One of the things that makes love a power greater than ourselves is that it inspires us to do things that don't exactly serve any self-interest or personal need, but wind up serving others. When my daughter was born, I got this on the deepest level I'd ever known. She was delivered by cesarean section, and I stood by my wife in the operating room while the surgeon's boombox played Aretha Franklin singing, "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." I was focusing on my wife during the procedure, encouraging and supporting her as her belly was sliced open. I was a bit dazed when the baby came out and they handed her to me. I held her to my breast and carried her down the hall to the room where she would be weighed and measured. The overwhelming feeling of wanting to protect her flowed out of me as I talked continuously to her. In the middle of the weighing, her lips started to suck, a signal that she was ready to nurse. I scooped her up despite the nurse's protests and whisked her back to my wife, where she latched on just as she was supposed to do. Everything I was thinking, feeling, and doing was for her. This instinctive response to my own child was what the Buddha chooses as the most profound example of love when he says in the Loving Kindness Metta Sutta, "Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings." Love, then, according to the Buddha, shouldn't be limited to the personal. It should be universal. The Buddha tells us to cultivate this feeling within so that we can spread it to all beings. Although love is natural and instinctive, like mindfulness, it needs to be developed in order to fulfill its potential. But once someone has developed a loving heart, it will touch people in all kinds of ways. Certainly the love of a mother or father can be powerful. The Buddha says we could carry our parents around on our shoulders for the rest of their lives, and it wouldn't repay them for the care they gave us when we were infants and children. The only way we can repay our parents, says the Buddha, is to teach them the Dharma. Although this teaching may not resonate for someone whose childhood was poisoned by alcoholic or abusive parents, I think we've all encountered people in our lives who have acted with spontaneous love and generosity toward us. This kindness can take many forms. My first English professor changed my life with just a few words. We were standing in the hallway outside the classroom on the last day of the semester, with students swarming around us. We'd been friendly throughout the term. We were probably about the same age. This community college teacher and me, the recovering alcoholic, trying to start a new life. "Have you ever thought about being a writer?" he asked. I don't remember my exact response, but I remember the feeling. "No, I'm trying to find a real occupation. Being a writer would be just another version of being a musician." Despite my resistance, though, I was flattered. I'd done well in the class and loved the exercises he'd given us. Even though I told him I didn't want to be a writer, I couldn't resist signing up the next semester for the creative writing class he recommended. He didn't have to do any of this. Community college teachers are overworked with as many as 10 courses to teach each year, 50 or more students enrolled in the classes. Taking the time and interest to encourage an individual student, one who isn't even asking for help, is not necessary. But I believe this was an expression of love, an act of generosity and caring, a spontaneous offering, springing from his appreciation of writing, of my work, of human potential. That one suggestion set in motion the events that led me here, to writing this book. An act like that comes out of non-selfishness, a sense of caring and responsibility, and it changes the world. Well, you can probably see why I felt I would enjoy reading that particular piece. It's very personal, obviously. The story of my daughter, and I'm sure many of you, certainly the parents here, have been through and have memories like that are so clear and sharp and powerful and yeah, and it's interesting, loving kindness meditation for years after my daughter was born, as long as she was, probably until she was 6 or 7. My loving kindness meditation was very powerful in relation to her. And it's interesting that it's kind of faded. It's that I don't there. Well, it doesn't sort of explode in the same way it did. I used to be able to just do metta for her, and just I would kind of go immediately into an absorption. I think that's why people get addicted to having children. It's actually right, happens to people that they oh, let's have one more child, because when they're little, Anyway, this is not a class about a parenting class. No, it's about love and this idea of giving and giving spontaneously and giving without expecting something in return, and how that can affect people, and it's of course something that the 12-step world is founded in, that the 12th step, carrying the message, serving people, sponsoring people, showing up and offering to help people who are struggling. It's quite a beautiful form for healing and for recovery. I'm sure every one of us, I'm pretty sure every one of us, that people in the recovery world have helped us at moments, and they've helped us for for nothing, that they weren't trying to get something from us and expecting something in return. That's pretty remarkable, to be part of a community that's founded in love in that way, love and service. And I don't think we, it's not like we go around bragging about it or something. Obviously, sort of taking particular pride in that would probably undermine the whole value of it anyway. But it is, pretty strong statement to look at this screen, and there's 31 people here, including me, and none of us would probably be here if it weren't for the power of love, of community love and individual love, and people caring for us who didn't have to. I I really held back from being involved in AA when I got sober. I kind of went to meetings, but I literally would stand in the back of the room. But even that, people sharing in that room is a gift that they gave to me, even though I was being very hesitant to be involved, and I wasn't talking to people and getting phone numbers in the way it suggested. But that willingness to just open up and be honest, it's really an amazing gift, and it's another one of those things that we can forget about if you get used to it. If you go to a lot of meetings, or you've been to a lot of meetings, the fact that people walk into a room and start talking about the worst things they've ever done in their lives, and the worst misery they've ever had in their lives, and sharing it, that's a huge act of giving, because people don't do that. You in ordinary interactions, you don't really hear about people's real lives, and something. It's really what attracted me the most to the 12-step world. I felt when I showed up, like finally I was getting the truth. I think growing up and really throughout my life up until that point, I'd always felt that either I am uniquely flawed in that I have this painful inner life that nobody else talks about, or nobody else is talking about the fact that they too have a painful inner life. And so showing up in AA and hearing about these people's painful inner lives and outer lives, was really reassuring. And I just felt like, okay, I'm not crazy, and yeah, maybe we're all crazy, right? I mean, this sort of presumption that, well, we're alcoholics, so we're all really messed up. The so-called normies aren't like this, and I don't believe that. I believe that most people. How can I say? I really believe that everyone is subject to dukkha, right? Everyone is subject to suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, death is suffering, sickness is suffering. Losing what we love and care about is suffering. Having what we don't want is suffering, and everybody experiences all those things. So I think there's a way in which people think they shouldn't talk about that stuff. and yeah, a lot of people don't want to talk about that stuff. And when I start talking about that stuff, people are like, sometimes like, don't want to hear about it. And okay, but to me, it's freeing. The honesty of it is freeing. I've been watching this show that is about a bulimic woman, and it's a comedy, ha, a dark comedy, and they have her sort of voiceover at times of her self-hatred, and it's really a program like show. It's called Physical. It's on Apple TV, whatever. And so this woman is really alone with these feelings. She's married, she has a kid, and then she at times just freaks out and goes and buys this junk food and goes to a motel and stuffs herself and then throws up and then goes about her day, And, it's horrifying. But as I said, it's kind of depicted in this darkly humorous way. But the episode that all right, I don't mean to like the TV show. But I'm getting to a point here that in the second season she starts having an affair with somebody who's culturally completely different from her. She's from a progressive family, and this guy's like a right-wing guy. Anyway, and it's this very weird kind of thing, and it becomes a replacement for her bulimia, right? Now it's sex addiction, right? But then in this episode last night, she freaks out and does her bulimic thing again. But this guy like follows her to the motel and breaks into the motel room, thinking that he's cheating on her. Well, she's cheating, she's cheating on her husband. And then he sees what's going on, and she admits it. And there's this moment when, she's like, so leave. That's, she's horrified and ashamed and just wants him to leave. And they've had this very impersonal sexual relationship, one of those really unhealthy. And he sits down beside her on the bed and puts his arm around her. And there's this tender moment when, for the first time in this like 2-year show, this woman has somebody who knows her, her dirty secret. And, and I don't know where they're going to go with that. It's just a TV show. So, anything can happen. But I was really moved by this moment because I just thought, oh, finally, she's not alone, Finally, even though it's this person that she's having this impersonal sex with, all of a sudden he's showing her love and she's feeling loved and seen because her husband has no idea who she is for real. And, it just really struck me as like, oh yeah, that's it right there. Finally she's gotten some love and again, it's a show that needs to keep going. So she's not going to get into recovery. I'm pretty sure. Like they can't. If she gets into recovery, there's no drama left. Maybe she'll go to a meeting. Pretty clearly the writers have some experience with this stuff. But yeah, I just thought, oh well, like really the show's over in a way. Like we're now she's sort of reached what she needed. So it reminded me a lot of my own experience. It wasn't somebody putting their arm around me, but it was going to meetings and having people love me and care for me and care about me. From very early on in the program, people helped me. I was really poor at that time, and at my I think I was around 2 years sober, and I had to have an operation, and I had no money or insurance, and people stepped up in my home group and paid for my medical procedure, and people that I didn't even know, people that were just like, it was a big group, so people just like donated money. I didn't ask. I didn't even ask for it. I just like shared about it, and people were like, "Oh, here, here." So it's quite amazing when we see how people care for each other. And it's out there in the world too, and it's well, I'm about to start thinking about the world, which I don't think I need to start to do right now, because it's a complicated place. So this was like a very personal morning. I didn't exactly plan all that, and I didn't go talk for very long. So I guess I'm going to open it up and see if there's any comments or questions or reflections, please.
Monica has her hand
Monica,
raised.
yeah, Monica, go ahead. I was just going to start complaining about people expecting me to do all the work, but
Um, I really always resonate with your teaching. I have. I also. It's interesting. I was watching that show and I quit watching
yeah,
it.
yeah. My
So
wife
now
can't. My wife can't watch it either. I don't.
it,
I don't blame you.
it gets painful, but I might give it another go at some point. But
Well, I have a dark sense of humor, so it fits with me.
well, we all
'Cause
yeah, and I like
I'm
it.
laughing at these horrible things. I'm like, oh, that's great. Yeah.
That's great. But I have had problems with eating disorders myself,
Yeah.
and I have, worked on that as an addiction. But I'll tell you what, I'm studying with my meditation teacher the second noble truth from Joseph Campbell for mindfulness, and all that he wrote about craving has really stuck with me and made a little I mean, maybe a big difference. And and we talked about noticing when there's craving. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, and I'm cross addicted, so I understand, the character in this. Think that until we start, I guess for me, I'm beginning to understand until we start really dealing with craving in a sense of the second noble truth and all the suffering that we don't, then I'm finding I'm really starting to understand how my addictions would jump around.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I used to call it the whack-a-mole, the Chuck E. Cheese. My kids used to go to Chuck E. and they had the whack-a-mole. One little thing popped up and you had to hit the other one, So it seemed like it was that for a long time, and it can be that. It's
Yeah.
craving for me anyway.
Thank you, Monica. I'll come back to craving, but first I want to really acknowledge that I brought up disordered eating, and I don't want to. I certainly don't want to make light of it, and I really want to acknowledge that it's it is a condition that many people experience, and many, as you say, cross addicted, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak about it in any kind of authoritative way, and I just want to. I don't know. I'm concerned that I may have triggered people, and I just want if anybody wants to talk about that, you're welcome to. I What is so hard about food is that, as I have heard from many people, that they have to take their drug of choice multiple times a day, and that's very different from being able to just stop drinking and using. And it's so intimate, food, your body, and how we think about our body, and all the feelings around that. So anyway, I see some hands have gone up. So good. Deborah, please.
I totally feel the power of love as a higher power, as a lower power. And I think it's so reassuring that in an addict, as in almost anyone, there's a little bit well, and in an addict, there's a lot of self-loathing. And so when they come into a community like AA or a Sangha like this and actually feel love, it's so powerful. And when it's done in a community, in a Sangha, it's multitudes of love.
Yeah.
You know, you can't single out a person and say, oh, thank you, I felt your love. But to feel this in the community is so wonderful. So thank you for giving us this space.
Yeah. Thanks, Deborah. And I, yeah, there is something, right, that's unique about when it's a community. It 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 does make it seem like, oh, this is normal. Like this is the normal social way for humans to be. It doesn't because we see so much hatred in the world. It's easy to get sort of caught up in a negative view of humanity, and think that, oh, people are all selfish and greedy and judgmental or whatever. And when there's a community of love that's founded in love, it's a reminder that that's not at all what the way humans have to be, and that has huge implications on the social and even political level. So, Julie, hi.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Sangha. Thank you for your beautiful personal stories this morning, Kevin. They were very, very touching. And I loved the meditation. Some things really arose for me that are important for me to follow up on. So thank you. And safe travels, and I'll miss you. And then there's the piece about the disordered eating. So I wish that I could laugh at myself, laugh at the disease. I cannot.
Right.
I was in a 13-month downward spiral, and I am very, very grateful that for the last 6+ weeks, I've been eating clean, and I thank you, and I thank you, and it feels amazing. But I just want to clarify and forgive my need to say this to people, but eating is the least of it. It's not just that we eat 3 times a day. So if we want to eat healthy, we have to plan our food. We have to shop for our food.
Yeah.
We have to prepare our food. It takes me over an hour to chop vegetables and to prepare my food. Then I cook my food, I eat my food, and I clean up afterward. And then I plan my meal for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Eating is one small piece. We live in a world that is so food oriented, even when it's healthy.
Yep.
So, we spend hours a day or a week navigating our food and our disordered eating. Yeah. And so I just really feel, because even in the community of addiction, not only even in the community of addiction do people who do not have disordered eating find it difficult to understand, but people within disordered eating community have such varied disordered eating that many people do not understand the breadth of my addiction.
Right.
So because it is a spectrum, right? And we are different, we land differently. And I'm a 10+ addict. So it is, I feel the need to just say and clarify, eating is just a small part, an important part, but that's not it, kiddo. So thank you for letting me share that in this safe space. Blessings. Namaste.
Julie, thank you so much for that. It's very interesting because I don't think you've ever been on a retreat with me, but one of the things that I bring forward on my intensive retreats is how interwoven into our days food is. And I ask people to bring that awareness to the first time that you notice, like in the morning, when you think of lunch, or when you smell the food being cooked, or when you feel your stomach, and then that's the beginning of your eating meditation, right? And that could be a couple hours before lunch, right? And then there's lunch, and then there's standing in lunch, and the feeling of craving, and seeing and liking or not liking what's being served, and how much to take, and the question, well, if I don't eat enough, I'm going to be hungry later, and so that I'm eating to keep from being hungry later rather than what I need now, and then eating too much and then falling asleep after lunch and being like, oh, I won't eat so much, and then not eating enough, and on and on and on, so that exactly what you said, it's interwoven in throughout our day. And to bring awareness to that it's a tremendous mindfulness practice, frankly. Yeah, and thank you for just your openness and bringing that wisdom to us. It's very helpful. Yeah. So it's great. We're getting people to share. So, Flo, hello. I can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. Technical problems. So for me, everything you just said to Kevin resonated on retreat when I went to retreat at Southern Dharma. But for someone that also struggles, I was an alcoholic, but also eating disorder recovery. When I came to retreat, it was the first time I could be all of myself. I didn't have to be just someone in AA and just someone in eating disorder recovery. And it was the first time that I felt welcomed, all parts of me. And I didn't have to compartmentalize my recovery because they are so intertwined. And it was the first time that I could share all those parts of myself. And then everything that you explained going on retreat for me was a huge opportunity for me to surrender to the experience of it. But to bring it back to the topic of the higher power of love, I struggle with that word in general, love. And I remember asking you, and you had told me that I could replace that word with care. And for me, with my recovery, specifically with eating disorder recovery, because was more about how do I care for myself? Because alcoholism and drugs was like, just how do I save my life? How do I live? And it was more about living for others at that point. But I never was willing to look at my eating disorder until I was 3 years sober. And I've been on both ends of the spectrum of that disorder. But when I start looking at how can I care for myself, then I was able to look more at that part of my recovery as a higher power, the higher power of caring for myself in a way that I would compassionately, I don't have children, but how would I compassionately care for my animal or my niece or my nephew? And I was able to kind of work with that concept of the higher power of love, of how would I care for someone else? And can I use that care towards myself? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just thought I wanted to share that.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you bringing back that idea of care, and thanks for mentioning Southern Dharma. Now of course I remember you. I wasn't really thinking about that, but I'll be there again not too long. I just made my flight yesterday we're going to the East Coast, so. But and it's a beautiful journey you're describing, and I really appreciate you taking us through it, and that kind of shift in view. It is so interesting, isn't it, how just a change in language can change how we perceive something. and how we handle something. So many people struggle with just the word God, for instance, and and then finding some other way of thinking about it. It's quite striking. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Flo. Very nice to see you. Yeah. Yeah, let's keep going. Laura.
Hi, everybody. This is my first meeting, and I just want to say thank you. I've really enjoyed it. So really getting a lot out of it today. There were so many things that have resonated for me. The first of which, when you were talking about coming into the 12-step program, I just recently celebrated 4 years sober, so yay.
Hey.
Thank you. But I also suffer from, mental, I have, in addition to my alcoholism, and, I had some sporadic, as my sponsor likes to say, party favors at the time also. In addition, yeah, she calls the drugs party favors. But it was mostly alcohol, but I also suffer from anxiety and depression, and was recently diagnosed with OCD and ADHD. So I probably have pretty much the whole alphabet now in my repertoire, which, I knew about, but have been telling psychiatrists for years, but I'm just recently being, taking the time to care for myself and go to the doctor and be persistent in my own care and so forth. But just to go back to the original reason that I wanted to talk today was because when I first came into the program, I had so much self-loathing, so much, I wouldn't even say low self-esteem. I would say negative a million self-esteem, I had no friends, because I didn't like myself, and I had drank by myself for so long. There would be times I would come home from work and just drink all weekend and wouldn't talk to another person the whole weekend until I would come back to work on Monday. So I was just in a deep, dark hole by myself. So that whole concept you were talking about of community and caring was so touching for me when I first came in. These people that I didn't know from Adam and were telling me that they loved me, and to keep coming back, and to, it's still to this day, it's something now that I don't ever want to give up, because that feeling is just amazing when you haven't had it for so long, and that, most of us don't come in here, smelling like rain, smelling like candy and spouting rainbows and stuff. A lot of us come in bloodied and bloodied and at the end of our rope. That was me.
Yeah.
I was a pretty low bottom, and only came in because I had nothing else. And I mean, literally, no job, no car, no friends, no place to go. So it was a last resort, and I told everybody in rehab, what I thought they wanted to hear, until another episode that you were talking about, how when you went to college, and your professor, who didn't have to do that, showed that he cared about you. And I had one of those moments in rehab where I was having trouble with the whole God thing, and I was it was an excuse. I don't want to do this because I'm not into God. God hates me. I don't know if there's a God. If there is, he hates me. But I was just using that as an excuse. And so the whole second step, where, came to believe that a higher power could change us or restore us to sanity. I just had in my mind, I'm just not going to do that. I don't believe in God. And, and it wasn't even a counselor. It was a guy that has been sober for 30 some years, would go there still every week, 3 days a week, and volunteer in the morning. And he pulled me aside after the morning session and said, "Hey kid, I see that you're having a really hard time with step 2. And I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do it." And I got, all indignant, and I'm just not going to do it. He said, "Well, I just think, let's just take a step back. I think you're reading that wrong." He's like, read the step to me. And so I read the step. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Okay, read it again. Came to believe that a power, and so he made me read it 5 times. And by this point, I'm getting PISSED. I am getting so effing mad. I just kept reading it. And he's like, "Okay, one more time. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity." That's how I was getting at that point. And he wrote every word down on the whiteboard. And he said, "Look what it says here. It's not saying that you have to believe you don't have to believe in a God of your understanding. You just have to believe that something greater than yourself will restore us to sanity. You don't have to believe in anything in particular. You don't have to believe in anything. You just have to believe that the possibility is out there. And if you can do that, you can do step 2. You can believe, hey, maybe there is something out there. You've seen it. You've seen it in these groups. And literally my head just, I mean, like that one person taking that time for me changed my whole 365 degrees. And he didn't have to do that.
Wow.
He took the time to sit after, with this bratty 50-year-old girl that just didn't want to get it and was telling people what she wanted to do. And he took the time after 30 some years sober to spend time with me to help me get step 2. And it changed my, literally I felt like my head exploded. And I was like, I can do that. I can do, and it started to make more sense. And I just started to open up my mind instead of having it, closed like a lot of us do when we first come into recovery. And I've had several others like that, like another person in rehab, every day she would say, you need to go to this meeting, like for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I never would do it. And finally, just to shut her up, ended up going to this meeting that she kept raving about. And it's my home group now. And she was right. And, there's just so many of these things where people didn't have to, so when I heard you say that, it's, if you've gone through it, and I've luckily been through it several times, I know what you're saying. And it's, for those of us that didn't have it for so long, it's so touching. And I think a lot of us put up that wall. Have you ever seen those commercials? I'm not sure if you guys have them, probably on the West Coast, but those commercials, I think it's for some kind of online psychiatry or something. It's where a guy jumps out of an airplane and he forgets his parachute, and a lady jumps out at the same time and has a parachute. She's like, here, grab onto me. I'll take care of you. And he's like, oh no, I'm fine. I don't want to ruin your experience. It's fine. I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. And it's like, it was showing us how, we don't want to ask for help, and we don't want to, bother anyone, or we're not going to ask for help. There's another one where a guy's lifting weights and it comes down on him and somebody tries to help him. He's like, oh no. And the guy's like, oh, there's no shame in asking for help. He's like, yeah, but you don't know my family. They'll just be, crazy. And so it's all about, us as, people don't want to ask for help for mental health, which I know I was the same way. And as alcoholics, there's, first of all, I'm not going to admit I'm an alcoholic or drug addict, and I'm not going to admit that I need help. Of course, I got this. It's fine, but yeah, that's how I was. And when I saw that commercial, I was just like, oh my, I used to say that all the time. Oh, here, let me help you. Oh no, I don't want to ruin your time. It's fine. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And I was like, wow, so yeah, a lot of stuff about what you said today, really resonated with me. So I just wanted to say, thank you for that, and really enjoying this meeting, and looking forward to coming back again. So thank you very much for letting me share.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you for all that. That's great. We are kind of considerably past the ordinary time of ending, but I know, Steve, you had your hand up if you wanted to just...
I just wanted to jump in and just say thank you to everybody. I'm full of gratitude for the shares. And, you're intimately aware of my lifelong food addiction. And, when I came back from the retreat, and I'm really looking forward to this, the teachings, getting back into the 12 steps as opposed to the Dharma work and all that. But when I came back from the retreat, I was kind of confused. I was trying to decide, how am I going to use both programs? And I really started kind of getting into panic mode because I've been in this lengthy relapse. But so I upped my meditation time and I started studying more and more. But then I realized that I got into this 10-week intensive with my FA program, which is Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous. And it's a really intense how to live in recovery program. And I have to say that working the two together and studying and figuring out how to blend the two together has really, really given me a lot of hope. And I'm making unbelievable strides in my meditations. And I'm really experiencing some recovery with my food addiction. If you're a food addict, I'm with you. I know. I mean, I'm going to be 71 in 1 week. And I've been a food addict since my mom dropped me out on the floor. And I tell you, it's a tough one. So thank you so much. I know we're running out of time, but I'll let you guys know how I'm doing. Blessings, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So let's take this as a theme for our day and maybe the next couple days. Just not the food. The food is always a theme. Let's take the love as a theme, both in giving it and in looking for it. I think it's nice, the mudita kind of to go through your day and notice when people are helping people. And, it's happening all the time. So, so thank you all for coming today and hanging out. And I'll be back Friday evening at 7 Pacific time. Take care.